All right. Welcome to another episode of NST Things, hosted by Casey Smith. It is January 30th, and today we're going to talk about something a little bit different. I oftentimes use myself as a guinea pig and come across things or have opportunities to experience things in life. And recently, well, not so recent actually, I was first educated about what we're going to talk about 3 years ago. And interestingly enough, I just kind of lost touch with the facility. I had other things going on, having a baby, big things. And I put a hold on everything. And what I found was 2 years after, I found myself in a position where I needed some change. And I wasn't sure exactly what was going on, but I knew something was off. I knew it wasn't myself. So today, instead of going through case studies, I thought it would be fitting. It's Thursday. Thursdays, since the beginning of last year, I kind of made a promise to myself in a sense that, I would focus at least some of my Thursday time, because it's easy to fill it with work, office things, whatnot. Although I'm not treating, it can get very hectic. And I told myself that, self-therapy or self-care primarily was a major component that I was missing in my life. I'm a very type A individual. It's easy for me to burn the candle at both ends. And I was doing that to myself a lot. And you don't quite fully understand some of the things that you go through and that you endure and how it begins to change you. But about 6 months ago, probably more close to 8 to 10 months ago, I was really feeling things were off in my life. And it's almost as though I had like a book fell from the sky and hit me in the head and was like, hey, you already know what to go do. Like, go do it. And I'm glad I listened to the book. So what we're going to kind of dive into is my experience, kind of what I had or was dealing with, and then a little bit about kind of, what I noticed change and what improvements I felt from experiencing neurofeedback. Like I'd said, I was first turned on to neurofeedback about 3 years ago. There's a facility here in Sarasota, Florida, called the Brainwave Center. Since experiencing this, I've recommended a lot of patients go try it as well. Try to explain it the best I can. It's not necessarily a therapy, but neurofeedback is a way to resculpt the neuroplasticity that is in your head. So neuroplasticity just means your brain can evolve and change over time. Sometimes what happens, much like our bodies and our posture, we get stuck in patterns, or we experience a trauma, or we experience, something big. And what we can now see, and through neurofeedback we can measure these things, is they can find if you've had a head trauma, if you've had a concussion. They can see and identify problems in the areas where your head or your brain made contact with the skull and with whatever structure your skull hit. It helps tremendously with ADHD, depression, anxiety and stress. In my opinion, some of the very root things that I feel are eating away at many people now. It's amazing how many people that are older that I see, and they've just endured a lot. And by the time you're 60, you've experienced a lot of life. If you didn't have any problems, doesn't mean you never will, or you're having problems just because you're getting old. you've been on this planet for a long time, and you've experienced a lot of life. You've experienced a lot of traumas. You've experienced a lot of overuse and misuse. So, normal muscle pain, dysfunction, that's normal. But it's fascinating that I'm 30 now and seeing kind of the rest of, my generation, the generation before mine, dealing with a lot of mental health issues. And I think we'll see mental health come to the forefront a lot more. I know my fiance dives into this quite a bit with the work that she does. People aren't mentally healthy. And there's a lot of masks, a lot of Band-Aids, much like we can take a pain pill to reduce some pain symptoms. You can take an antidepressant. You can, take things to help with anxiety. And in some cases that's, it's needed. I do believe, per your situation in life, there are different avenues, and there's, good, better, worse avenues. Sometimes we have to take an avenue that's not so great in the beginning, because of the situation that we're at in life. So if you're an individual that needs medication and that's what you can afford, and that's, that's where you are in life, I would hope that this brings some education, and you continue to educate yourself and to seek out, pardon me, some different modalities, some different alternative things that could help. But for myself, I was basically getting to a point where, having a kid, adjusting to life after having a kid, having my own personal family disruptions and stressors in life, and then segueing that into planning a marriage. I'll be married here at the end of February. It's been in the works for a little over a year, just because the timing of everything. And I can honestly say, although that wasn't as hectic in the beginning, it's very hectic now. And I don't know if I'd be doing as well as I am if I hadn't sought out the neurofeedback and had kind of, chosen to take that path and remembered that was a path that could be taken. So to backtrack a bit, what is neurofeedback? The easiest way, or the way I describe it to folks, is your brain exhibits patterns. And as patterns, there's different brain waves, alpha, delta, theta, and they monitor these brain waves. And they can see where in areas of the brain, things are hyperactive. So, for instance, when I went in, I was experiencing, I always had a tendency to do things faster, take on a lot. And when I was younger, nobody really said that I had ADHD. Nobody said that, I had any sort of learning disability or mental impairment, however you want to label it. And I'm fortunate for that. I think that definitely helped how I sculpted myself in my brain and looking at things, because I didn't feel like I had an impairment, which I think is important. But as an adult, people can tell you things and you can process it. You can choose to look at it differently. Whereas as a child, you're just like, oh, crap, that's me. What can I do? So when I had first went in, I had heard about Brainwave Center about 3 years ago. I was in growing the practice. Things were busy, and I had met Greg, the gentleman who runs the place, and we talked a bit, and we did an initial scan, and I think I maybe went back like 2-3 times, and then I'd worked on him a few times, and life got crazy, and I stopped going, kind of put it on the back burner, and life got more crazy, and life got more crazy, and life got more stressful, and you feel as though you just become this beast of burden that's, carrying things that are unnecessary, but you can't escape it. You can't escape it in your mind, because just like your physical structure, your mental structure has evolved through traumas, emotional stresses, physical traumas, accidents, head traumas, things like that. And about 2 years, 2 years after we had firstly met, I had finally worked myself into a position where I was burning the candle at both ends in 3 places in the middle, and I had wax going everywhere. And fortunately, I knew that I was kind of a sinking ship. I knew that things weren't well, and I also knew that I had pushed myself too far. It's hard to understand the amount of effort and time that really goes into to growing a business. What's necessary. It's not like we're selling Girl Scout cookies. The type of work that we do isn't known of in many areas, and we're the unicorn in the woods. There's few of us around the country in general, and when people come in, they're skeptical. It's hard to retain patients at first, and this is all common stuff because they don't know what you do, and you're doing unique things, and sometimes you do the things that maybe aren't as significant later on, and you don't get the best changes up front, and maybe that person doesn't get sold on it or whatever the case may be. So you're constantly kind of pushing, trying to get people well, to better educate yourself, to better understand the measurements that we take and how to treat things and all this stuff. And then you compile that with, at the time I was an instructor at the Center for Neurosomatic Studies. I was trying to launch a product business down here in Sarasota, and I was in the process of, going through my fiance's pregnancy and then the baby's birth and segueing into being a father and fatherhood and everything that takes place in that. And boy, you think you can handle some stuff, but when that stuff gets a little too much, you start to fall apart in ways, and you start to cope in ways that you just don't even fully understand. And that's kind of where I was getting to. I was in I call it a rut, because I feel as though I had depression, and we can measure that from the scans that we took. But the way I describe it is more of a rut. And I talked to many other patients about this too, and I get the same reaction from a lot of people. Not everybody is in a severe depressive state, really down and out. Some people are just off, and they could be what you'd consider that type A high performer. They can take it all on and juggle it all, and they could be slowly breaking down mentally because of what their brain is already programmed to do. If they do have tendencies towards ADHD, things like that, they can also pick up that there's metabolic stressors or metabolic dysfunction. And for me, I was basically just kind of becoming a potato. You lose interest in doing things. I could still go out. Like, I was still, overall a happy person. I had a beautiful little girl. I had my fiance. I mean, life was good. And it sucks when life is good and you still don't feel, up to par to do certain things. And you're just like, what on earth is going on? And, you'll question it, but at the same time, because of the state that you're in, you'll shrug your shoulders and go, oh, well, it's a bad day, or, there's just a lot going on. And just like gaining weight in the mirror, changes take place, and you wither and break down, and you don't notice these little changes because it's a little compromise here and there every day. And I finally got to the point where I had sought out like a therapist. I was like, hey, maybe I just got to go like talk some things out. Like, maybe it's maybe it's me, maybe it's my interactions with people. Like, what's making me feel the way that I'm feeling. And therapy was very beneficial. And I will say that I did the therapy while in the beginning stages of the neurofeedback. Neurofeedback basically begins with about 12 treatments or 12 sessions, or excuse me, 20 sessions. So in the beginning, for maybe a month or two, I was seeing this gentleman, and he was helping me. He was educating me a bit more about boundaries, which it's easy to have boundaries with patients and kind of draw on the line somewhere, but not so hard with family, and definitely not as easy with having a little one. You have to. We often put our kids at the top of the scale, and they shouldn't be. They should fall into order in the rest of the family. And when we put them as too much of a priority, they can take too much from us, and there's a lack of structure. When there's no structure, there's no love. Your kids will appreciate the structure. They may piss and moan, but they're going to appreciate it in the end. And I was not built. I did not have these tools to understand that. So definitely go into therapy. And I had this discussion with Greg, the gentleman who runs the Brainwave Center. And he said a lot of times people do need to talk things out. He goes, we may be able to change things and cultivate a new set of wiring schematics in the brain. He goes, but people have been through physical trauma, sexual trauma. They've been in a state of depression for a long period of time. PTSD, not just those that have served in war, but I've talked to many patients that have witnessed someone commit suicide. These are heavy emotional things, emotional traumas that we go through and can bear witness to, and we don't fully understand the repercussions. We're like, oh, geez, like that was a shocker. That really threw me through a loop. But you don't realize what's taking place or what's changing under the surface. So for me, that's kind of where I was at. I knew I had already talked to Greg about neurofeedback, so I knew that was a possibility, but I didn't know how well it would work. Obviously, doing this type of work, I know what I can do. I'm always a little more skeptical when I meet other practitioners, because I've also realized that certain practitioners aren't as motivated or aren't as maybe into their craft, and they don't really have it down, And I was doubtful in the beginning. But when everything was becoming too much, too overwhelming, and I needed to make a change because I just wasn't healthy, I reached back out to Greg and said, hey, I go, this is what I think is happening. And I go, I'd like to come back in and, like to start everything again and really commit this time. So he said, great, we'd love to have you back. And I went in, we did another follow-up scan, and sure as shit, just like I was anticipating, just like I was feeling, the scan from the very first time, which would be now 3 years ago, wasn't as bad as the one from 2 years ago. So the more recent one we could see from last year, or 2 years after, I should see. So the second test was done in June of 2019. The first one was done in August of 2017. And the 19 scan definitely showed that I was dealing with a greater deal of anxiety. With that, when anxiety becomes too much just with the brain and how it functions, your brain will start to more or less inhibit itself, which is a term neurosomatic therapists are familiar with, but I've learned much of the medical industry is not. And inhibition is basically a dampening of, a retardation of a signal. So things get overstimulated, and your body will begin to self-govern them. It will begin to turn that signal down, or I should say not necessarily turn the signal down, but make it a less reactive area. So if your biceps in a great deal of dysfunction, the tissues can be inhibited because of the dysfunction. So it may feel weak. You can only lift 5 pounds. And you could go to a PT and they could try to strengthen that and, maybe get it to 10, 15, whatever. Or a therapist recognizes that the tissue is inhibited. They treat the tissue. They get the neuromuscular junction to release. And all of a sudden, within the same treatment, you can lift 20 pounds. And we didn't have to do any strength training. We didn't have to go to the gym or anything else. We just had to get the tissue to a healthy state again. And that's what kind of neurofeedback is doing. It's really been my, mental NST. We have the ability to influence cranial bones and get things to move around in better positions, but, we have very little influence other than taking pressure off the central nervous system. We can't really correct it. And I'd find this with patients. we'd correct some things, and mentally or cognitively, there's areas we fall short, because I can't rub your brain. So Greg was finding that in my second scans, I was becoming more inhibited, and inhibition, the easiest way to understand inhibition in your brain is basically depression. As you become more active and your brain displays more beta waves, your brain gets to a point eventually when it realizes you are not doing any rest and relaxation, which is alpha. And your brain is so intelligent that it goes, okay, our captain here doesn't understand anything that's going on. And they can't calm themselves down throughout the day because they're constantly doing, and we're producing those beta waves. But even at night, they're not stopping. Their mind is still racing. They're still overactive mentally, whatever the case may be. And your brain will begin to impose alpha. And alpha is the rest, relax, chill out. And what happens is, instead of alpha and beta kind of having this, this back and forth, you end up with beta stuck on or alpha stuck on. And I was in a beta state, but I was transitioning to alpha. So when I had first went in, basically the easiest way to explain is I felt anxiousness. He had told me I had ADHD. I kind of took that with like, okay, maybe I should, I don't know, drink less coffee, meditate, whatever, something. And it wasn't basically until I started doing the neurofeedback that I even realized like the changes that needed to take place. So when I left after just finding out that I was anxious and everything, I was like, okay, well, like, I really need to, control my thoughts. I need to really buckle down on, just letting my mind wander and do crazy stuff. And, you can exercise, you can do a couple things to quiet your mind. But again, your brain has evolved. It's shifted in a sense. And although those things can help and they are beneficial, and I think they're great for support, I think when you're in, the red, so to speak, when you're in the hole and you're trying to dig yourself out, you can't just do maintenance stuff. You got to take some serious action. And I think a lot of people hope that medications, do that for them. But man, I've talked to a ton of people that are taking antidepressants and other, anxiety medications. And I mean, it takes the edge off, but it's nowhere near close to actually, making these individuals feel well or really getting them on a better path. And basically, I kind of floundered until I went back to see Greg and committed to doing the sessions. But I mean, I could tell, we'll say like the second time I went. The second time I went, I started to notice that the changes, like I felt more refreshed, like your brain just feels a little more like sorted out. So I'd leave and I'd go through the rest of my day, maybe go get a massage, go work out, do something else for, my health, because it's my self-care day. Go get a haircut, make yourself look good, get a good meal, take a little you time. So I kept doing that stuff. And I would notice that, hey, for a couple days, I'd feel a little more chipper, a little more upbeat. And what I was finding is each time I would go, I was noticing that feeling sustain. And it was going longer and longer and longer until eventually you get to a point where you're just like, you know what, like I'm not feeling too bad. Maybe things aren't great, but it's almost like your house is a complete disaster. And the first few sessions, it's as though someone comes in and organizes your office. And now all of a sudden, you have a room you can go in your house that's not chaos, that you can be still in, that you can look around the room, and what you choose to focus on, you then start to think about. Instead of walking into a room, everything's laying on the floor, and your mind is so busy focusing on everything around you because it's a complete disaster that you end up being so overwhelmed you can't do anything else. That's how the first couple months went. And I could really tell when I was starting to shift, because when I was going to see the therapist, the gentleman I was speaking with, he he kind of had those moments where he was just like, well, he's like, I think you got this figured out. Like, he was kind of, it was weird for me because it seemed like he was just like, well, like, you've sorted out a lot of this, and like, I've kind of given you the tools that you need. Like, it was a weird dynamic. Like, I don't know if that's how he normally does things, or if I really kind of picked things up and understood him quicker. If that was the case, it makes me wonder if, did I have a different mindset or outlook, and not such maybe a damaged viewpoint on looking at things, because my mental health was improving. But whatever the case may be, I'd stopped doing sessions with him, but I kept up on the neurofeedback. And, there was a couple times throughout, especially like in the fall of last year, where, we were in North Carolina, we were coming back, we had Halloween, we had family over, I had my bachelor party up in Nashville. There's all this stuff going on. And there were times when I wasn't going in. So, I'd maybe go in 3 out of 4 weeks in a month or something like that. So, miss a week here, miss a week there, maybe for a holiday, whatever the case may be. But what I was finding is once I'd gotten my feet wet, so to speak, and I had gotten those 2 months worth of sessions in. So roughly I was like halfway through the protocol. I was finding that even if I missed a week, that the changes were sustaining. So the changes weren't just bloop, falling off the radar. Oh, I'm kind of feeling back into a funk again. I was able to handle it. And not only was I able to handle it, but I was able to handle it, through stressful things. So, in my head, we formulate things in a weird way. But for instance, like driving to North Carolina, I've driven long distances sometimes, usually not all the way. Usually I have, a co-driver or something like that. But North Carolina was like 12 hours up, 12 hours back. And I did it like a trooper, all by myself. And, Amanda's watching the babies, her sister's watching the babies, and I'm plowing on down the road. And although it was stressful, I feel like I was able to take it better. I was able to focus. I wasn't getting over anxious. I wasn't getting stressed out. I wasn't panicking, nothing like that. And even when it came to certain family interactions I was finding that I wasn't getting worked up about certain things. I was just like, I would hear something. I'm like, oh, okay. And I could almost sit back and process it, take it in, instead of having, being in this chaos of a room and picking up some random object off the ground and segueing into some reactive emotion. So I feel like about, a quarter in to half away, I really started noticing that I was able to leave. I was able to do stuff. And I don't even want to call it regressing, but I was sustaining the changes longer. And as time went on, I found that I was almost like turning corners. I would turn a corner, and you won't realize it that day, but you'll look back a week later and you're like, wow, like this week has gone differently. I noticed this was different, or this changed. And for me, that was, in a sense, some sort of validation that I needed. Because, with neurosomatic therapy, we can measure change even if you're not feeling it. If we see it, we know we're on the right path, but there's just something that's been overlooked. So I knew that if I was experiencing a different feeling, and, I'd cut back on some other things, I was no longer, talking to this gentleman, I was just utilizing the techniques and stuff that he had given me, I knew something was shifting for the better. And when you have that sense of confidence that, I'm capable, things get a lot easier, and things start to kind of fall into place more. And then kind of segueing into the remainder of the year, the very end, through the holidays, who doesn't have a stressful time during the holiday? We usually have a big family over on Thanksgiving. We take care of a vast majority of it. Setting stuff up, cooking. I make whiskey apple pies every year. that stuff takes time. And when you're juggling a business, when you're juggling, patient cases that are, problems, like legitimate problems, like these people aren't getting well and they're falling short to where they should be. And, that's stressful. And then, you're maybe trying to, hire therapists or get people to get exposure to another therapist. There's just so many things that kind of go on, and all these things just compound and compound and compound. And I was finding that I could just handle these things better, and I was becoming less and less reactive to information when I just recently get it. And now that we've gone through everything, now that I've seen the proof in the pudding, through the holidays, even more so this past 2 weeks. Geez, these past 2 weeks are probably more stressful than the holidays were. We're kind of in the final stages of getting stuff ready for the wedding, and fortunately my fiance is a saint. She's taking care of a lot of it. And I don't know if I wouldn't have just thrown my arms up a long time ago and said the hell with the whole thing, if I wasn't in kind of the mental state that I'm in now, because it's very overwhelming. I mean, I can understand how kind of planning for a wedding really takes the luster out of the whole getting married thing. It's not as casual and as easy as it used to be. I mean, you can have it that way. You can go off to Vegas and elope. You can do whatever you want. That's your choice. For us, we have family up north. We have family down here, and we want our family and friends to share this time, this moment with us. We want, this significant event in our lives, to have these people present. So, if that comes with a certain deal of stress, if that comes deal with a certain cost or price point, we're going to do that. We're willing to play ball. Doesn't mean everybody has to, but this was the path that we chose. And if you choose that path, or any path that could be stressful, regardless of what you're doing, you need to acknowledge the fact that, mental health is a component. And if you're already not in a great state, the last thing you probably want to do is bring more upon yourself to push you further into a hole. So I just say that to be cautious, because I notice just from my own experiences that, the more you add to the fire just burns more. It's not going to smolder it. It's just you're stoking the fire, and eventually the fire is going to grow and it's going to get worse and worse. And that's more or less what I was kind of noticing. So when I went back in for my rescan and they were showing me, hey, when you first came in, your anxiety was getting to a point where depression, that alpha wave or alpha waves, were starting to push themselves onto your brain to calm itself down. It was like, hey, you can't manage this, so we're going to do it for you because you're not doing a good enough job. Problem with that is when your body makes a correction, it usually makes we'll call it a semi-permanent correction, because now I know it's changeable. It creates a change, and you have to deal with that change unless you know how to go in and actually address it. And for what changes, I experienced, I compare it to, you'd have to do a lot of therapy. You'd have to really figure some stuff out mentally, and also develop some good mental health, kind of physical health daily practices. But I feel now the way that my mind works is I receive the benefits of, you could say being a monk, meditating in the mountains. Everything all the time that they spend into cultivating the still mind that they have, you can achieve through neurofeedback. When I did my follow-up brain scan, our brain map, we found that things had all improved. My perception of how things had gotten better was better, and we could also measure the brain, and we could see that the brain in different categories was also improving. So it further helps kind of, for me, validate that, I felt certain things, I was doing certain things, and then on the back end, hey, let's go ahead and measure, let's take a scan, and let's assess what's actually happening, not just your perception of what's happening. And I'll be damned, it was spot on. The anxiety had calmed down, the depression had calmed down, everything had improved. It was basically noted I had significant improvements across the board. And I had taken some notes and kind of looked through my mapping and stuff before I was choosing to record this, and I was going to try to throw in some information, some facts that are kind of in the catalog that they give you, the printout. But honestly, it's a little hard. I'm not skilled enough in kind of the verbiage and breaking this information down. So, maybe in the future I can get Greg on here and have him talk about it and rant for a little while about the benefits of neurofeedback and the more of the sciencey part that he understands. I say this a lot, I like to know a lot of things, but I like to be the master of one. My thing's therapy. His thing's neurofeedback. So there's certain things that we just won't dive into on this podcast, but hopefully in the future I can get Greg on and we can kind of go through, a little more in depth of, not just the benefits of neurofeedback, but, some individuals that he's maybe treated, he's seen in the past, with, more severe issues regarding, significant head traumas, PTSD, severe depression, things like that. But this has really been a huge learning curve for me. I almost feel like kind of giddy about it, like a kid. I want to say every patient that's come in this past week or two, I've been, telling them like, hey, I finished my neurofeedback. Like, I'm done with my program. Like, this is what I noticed. These are kind of the improvements that I feel. And what's mind blowing is, we do a full intake. So people say like, they'll say medical history and depression's on there. They'll mention depression, anxiety. You'd be surprised how many people actually are like upfront and honest about it. It's probably like 20%, 30%. And a lot of people I've talked with, and a lot of people unexpectedly, all of a sudden start opening up about things that, they've been that way for years. They've taken antidepressants, they've done this or that, and they're stuck in a certain place. And just me talking to them and explaining the best I can of what's happening to the brain, and kind of how we understand it through, neurosomatic therapy terms, like the term inhibition. They're looking at beta waves, alpha waves, and how it influences the brain and what state the brain's actually in. We look at things as, they're dysfunctional or they're not. And unfortunately in this case, I had a lot of dysfunction in my brain that I couldn't manipulate out. That wasn't, like I said, you can't massage it. You can't treat these things, physically at least. You can take pressure off, but again, that doesn't re-sculpt the synapses in the brain and how the brain is actually communicating and sending that information. So what I'll probably do is at the info of the podcast, I'll include the Brainwave Center website. I'm sure there's neurofeedback elsewhere. I know I've had minor discussions here and there with Greg about where neurofeedback is and different people that do it, things like that. The facility down here I know is growing. They've been looking to reach, or they have been working with not only kids groups, but paraplegics, other individuals that have dealt with, PTSD type issues, head traumas, etc. And they seem to be doing the right things. They just seem to be doing the right things. And from my own experiences, I know this is an avenue now that is probably a lot more fitting for many people. I know for myself, my brain was operating in a way that, sitting down and meditating, first off, my mind goes to, okay, what a waste of time. And then if I can, overrule that and say, well, you really need to do this for, some self-care. Then I'm just, I'm antsy and ready to go and want to do stuff. And I'm sitting here trying to still my mind, and I can't, or I'd half-ass it, and then I'd want to, get up and skip off to do something else. And I was just realizing, like, I want to say it was 2 nights ago, I had going back in time again, when I was burning the candle too much. I was trying to launch this product, and I had some t-shirt designs that I was coming out with, and things that were important to me, things that had a lot of significance that helped explain kind of my journey and some of the things that I had to do, or a mental state I had to kind of adopt, that I wanted to share. And I'm pleased to say that I was actually able to, grind out, I don't know, probably 2-3 hours at the minimum of website development, reconstruction type stuff. I was able to get these images. I was able to upload them to the site. I was able to create pages on the site, create links, create, the header and footer links and all that sort of stuff. Things that I used to be a bit more of a computer nerd, I'll call it. Video gamed a lot and things like that. And then I got away from it. As you build a business, you don't really have time to do much else. And if you do have time to do stuff else, you're going to spend it, with the most important things. And for me, that's my family. And a lot of that's fallen to the wayside. But for me to be able to start a project, first off, to not procrastinate in starting a project and going, okay, I'm going to do this. We're going to get it done. I started working that night, worked through diligently, and I haven't had one. I won't say never, because I don't know if, I don't remember everything as being a kid, but I had the best focus, concentration, memory retention, understanding where certain things were, remembering how they linked up. So when I went back and was making further changes, I could connect those dots and make everything come full circle so it worked properly on the site. A lot of things. And then, of course, this was at the end of the day. I'm pounding that out before midnight. After seeing 8 patients, 12-hour workday, same old. And I don't even think it was maybe till the next day where I just kind of sat back and I was like, holy cow, like I need to kind of appreciate this for a second. Like I haven't done this in a minute, like a minute, like, long time. So, for me, this was something that was truly life-changing. I think it saved me in a lot of ways. It's hard to say what kind of progressive mental state that I would be in, because it's not like I'd stop. I'm relentless. We're going to drive this bus till the wheels fall off. So if I didn't seek out help, which I suggest people do, if this is interesting to you, if this seems like, something that might help you in some way, educate yourself, go out, find some information, heck, reach out to the Brainwave Center, reach out to somebody in your local area, figure out, somebody that does it, and make sure that they're doing it the right way. I don't know if there's potentially wrong ways to do it, but I know I've heard of some people like doing remote neurofeedback, and people do it at home, and you have to put the electrodes on yourself and stuff like that. Listen, I know people that, can't wash their own car or tie their own shoes. So if a practitioner is going to, leave their confidence in me to put electrodes in the right area on my head, and I can't see the top of my head, I'm probably going to end up fucking up. So, be warned, if you find a facility that, they're mapping you in the beginning and at the end. My treatment process was for 20 sessions. They were half-hour sessions. From conversations with Greg, it's not uncommon for people with severe mental traumas, physical or emotional, potentially strokes, things like that, to need 40, 60, PTSD, kind of throw that in there as well. 40 to 60 treatments, because they have more, in some cases, permanent issues. Something has created, and this isn't how it's, well, I'll try not to use that terminology. He kind of describes it as if you have a path, like a well-carved path, a dirt path in the middle of a grassy field. When you have a mental trauma or physical trauma, something that really rocks your head, it's like throwing a building or the corner of a building in that path. So now when you're walking through the path, all of a sudden you walk up to the corner of the building, and you're like, oh, damn, there's a building in the path. And what neurofeedback does is it will recreate the tightest path around that building to get you back on the primary path again. And for individuals dealing with that sort of issue, where it's more than just a deviation off the normal, more efficient pathways. They're going to need more treatments. So do your diligence. If you want to kind of look into neurofeedback, you can feel free to contact us. We'll give you some information for the Brainwave Center here, and I'll attach it in the bio below. But really interesting stuff for me. Like I said 100 times now, it's been life-changing. It's really given me something back and has put me, mentally, my mental health in a much better state that, I can do what I want to do. I can go back to focusing on these, little projects that I wanted to get going and things that I'd rather do. Hell, this podcast is a great example. I've thought about doing this for a while. And when you're so overwhelmed by, what's going on in life and things already seem too great, fortunately for me, I kind of knew I shouldn't take on more, but I also wasn't being proactive in how I should try to fix it, fix things. So at the end of the day, I think this has probably been, next to NST, probably one of the most significant things that I've experienced in my life as far as, what it's kind of brought to the table, what my experiences were, and what changes I've noticed from it. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. Like I said, hopefully in the future, we'll be able to get Greg on the podcast and talk a little bit more about neurofeedback. But this is really some powerful stuff. It sounds like it's been around for a little bit of time. But I think it's one of those things, much like everything else, it can take time to refine certain things, to have the proper technology. In particular with neurofeedback, you're watching a movie basically the whole time. So you're there for a half hour. They connect some stuff to your face. You put on some colored sunglasses and or glasses with LED lights in them, and you watch a movie. And as the movie plays, the program is manipulating the movie in a variety of different ways. And what it is it's basically, the carrot in front of the horse. So it's coaxing your brain to make certain changes. The minute it makes that change, your brain goes, oh, okay, here's carrot. And it rewards it. So it corrects the whatever distortions it's making with the movie. And this is nothing that you can influence yourself. You can't sit there and Jedi mind trick it or anything like that. It's just a moment for you to sit there, enjoy a movie. And while you're just being present in that moment, your brain is starting to resculpt itself. It's starting to fire differently and fire more efficiently. So feel free, anybody who's listening, I would highly advise, if you're struggling with any of the things that we kind of covered today, and you're looking for an alternative method, and you can afford some out-of-pocket expenses, this is going to be up your alley. And this is going to be, and I don't know this myself yet, but I don't believe it's a short-term fix. I do believe it's a long-term fix. Greg does say that these changes that take place are permanent. But with that being said, we could say that neurosomatic changes are permanent as well. The unfortunate part is as we live life and as we get older, we will continue to experience physical, mental, and emotional traumas. So changes made today doesn't mean you're going to be perfect for the rest of your life. If there's a significant death in your family, if you endure a significant head trauma, things are going to change, and you will have to have a certain amount of refining done. But at least you'll be picking up the pieces from a good point, instead of trying to pick up the pieces from a point where you've been stuck in a really negative state, really been stuck in a hole for a really long time, and now maybe you have a car accident or some significant emotional trauma stacked on top of that now you have to weed out things further. So for myself, I think this will definitely be something that I continue to do, maybe not monthly, maybe every 2 to 3 months, and I'm hoping that in the future we'll be able to continue our relationship with the Brainwave Center. They do work with a lot of kids, and some of the issues the kids deal with, we can help with through the cranial manipulations or cranial balancing that we do. And on the back end, neurofeedback is resculpting what's on the inside and refining those synapses and getting the brain to function more efficiently in ways that neurosomatic therapy can impact. So pretty cool stuff. I hope this sheds a little light on a new topic for people, and just give you a little something different than interesting patient cases and shoulder pain. So I wish everybody the best. I will begin this out as soon as possible, and we'll be following up next week with some more patient cases. Had some interesting stuff regarding integrating some Chinese medicine with neurosomatic therapy, figuring out better ways to identify organ dysfunction, things like that. So we'll sort all that out in the next one. And until then, I appreciate you listening.